be a roughneck, I'll never amount to nothing. Pulling keys and laying pipe is hard.
Now the last video that I put on YouTube was on JP Morgan, and in there I tried to show you that the whole thing's mathematical, and that it's got nothing to do with supply and demand, or what people think. It's all controlled, and they use the media to make money out of you by putting false information in there. You basically believe it, and then they do the opposite, okay? Because they control the media, they control the exchanges, they control everything. So hopefully you agree that the JP Morgan, what I showed you, was impossible, because I showed you without the benefit of hindsight how I said what levels might be interesting to watch into the future, and they just happen to be where the market topped out. Now I'm now going to do a similar kind of thing, and I'm going to do it on crude oil. Now this is the web page for clients, and I started doing the videos in 2022 when the internet became fast enough to actually stream videos, or for most people, should I say. And like I said, I'm going to do crude. So what we'll do is we'll search for crude. Okay, so I did one in 2005, I did one in 2013, I did one in 2015, did one in 2015, did one on the 9th of the 9th 2015, 2016, and eventually we'll get to 2022. Okay, so I think this is the one I'm looking for here. So on the 8th of the 3rd 2022. So basically, if we start the video, now we're about a third of the way through the video. Now I'm not going to show you how I did it, however there's enough information on the screen for you to work it out with yourself. Or as Gann put it, give a man a fish, feed him for a day, teach a man to fish, feed him for a lifetime. So this was the major low back here, okay, and I used the past to work out the future. Now let's just say that this was the very first day that you started doing what I do, okay, and you had this much back information, okay. So I used hindsight to work out how they've set the mathematics up to predict where the markets might change into the future. So the first rise I've decided is 570%. Now if I get these numbers wrong, I will get it completely wrong into the future, okay. That's very important to understand. But what you'll notice with a lot of these numbers is they're kind of recurring. So you can see there 540, 540, 540, 540. It's a recurring number. This one here is 77.777777 recurring. This one here is 1818. It recurs, so it's 181818181818 forever. Okay, so there's logic behind the madness, okay, but if I get that number wrong, I won't get it right into the future. You've got to understand that is very important, because mathematically it might actually be, if you actually worked it out, it might actually be 573.69425, the actual physical number, but that's not what we're looking for. Okay, now what I'd need is at least 2 tops to find future tops. If I've got 3, it's even better. Okay, or as the Bible puts it, it takes 2 or 3 witnesses. Okay, sometimes 2 is fine, sometimes 3 is more important. So that's the first number that I used in this video, and I explained in the video how I did it. The second top, which is this one here, okay, gives me this number for the future, 1077.7777, which is exactly where the market stops. So I might, that if I'd worked that out when I did this, when it's updated to this chart, that would give me confidence that I'm onto something. Okay, now so this and this gives me this, and this gives me this number here, 1376.47. okay, and that does actually work. It only works for about a couple of weeks, but it does stop the market. Now halfway between this number and this number is this number, 1193.18181818 recurring, and that actually gives you that top that was made there. Okay, so that dark line and that dark line give me a level off the top of the chart. Halfway between that dark line and the one off the top of the chart gives me this level here. Okay, and that one, it just goes straight through. Now again, as I keep saying, if it's not going to work, that's exactly what I want it to do. I want it to go straight through. Now the title's is not showing the price, but basically that line there is the number that's halfway between this one and the dark line that's off the top of the chart, which is exactly where it was when I did the video, where it's just stopped. One of Gann's major numbers is 50%. It's not that simple, but basically from that, where the fast movement took place from, it rose 50%. Now I've done exactly the same thing from this low down here, and you can see I've got the dark numbers, so that number and that number give me that number, and that number and that number gives me that number, which is the same place as that from that other low. Halfway between there and there is there, which coincides with here. So the more you get these things coinciding at the same place from different lows, the better chance you have it of being right. So you can see here I've got a number from that low coinciding with a number from the major low. Okay, now what actually happens? So it was made about 132. So if we click on here, that's where the market topped out. Okay, so the market was going up incredibly quickly, yeah, and then I showed you the video the day after the top was made, so I showed you it was actually here. Now let's go back to here. Close that down. Now the next video that I did on crude oil was on the 9th of the 8th 22. So now we're about a third of the way through the video, and remember I need 2 lows to get future lows. So you can see here I've got the first low as 29.03222. Now before that low was made, I would have probably picked that low there, okay, but since that low was made, it's had a much bigger rise than this low, and so I decided that was the best one for the first hindsight number. And then the second hindsight number I used as 30.76923, which is where the market bottomed out here, okay. And then from those numbers I then worked out the following ones for the future. Now from those 2 numbers you get 33.33%. Now that's one of Gann's major constant numbers. Yeah, that's if you read say 45 Years on Wall Street about percentages, he will say that 33.33% is an important number. Another important number he talks about is 25%, because it's half of 50, which we just mentioned before. Remember, from that low there it was a rise of 50%. So Gann's constants, yeah, are important to watch, but he would never use these numbers, 29.0322, because he didn't know it, or 30.769 because he didn't know it. But from that and that you get one of Gann's constants, and it's why what Gann did worked, because without him realizing it, these numbers will suddenly appear in the mathematics. Okay, so, and that's an example of it. That's a number that he would watch, yeah, but I worked it out from what works in the past, because you'll find other times 50% and 33.33 and 25 just don't work. You can see from this low here one of Gann's numbers works, 33.33% rise, yeah, but you actually work it out from what happened in the past, yeah. So anyway, what I'm trying to get at is that I had some numbers on the chart. So that's hindsight. that's hindsight. That isn't hindsight, and that's when I did the video saying that that could be important. Yeah, for the future I have this level here. Now that has actually got a Gann constant. One of Gann's numbers is 75%, and 37.5 is half of 75, and from the mathematics of what works in the past, it gives me that number. You can also see, for example, from this high here, it would be a fall of 33 1/3 based on the mathematics based on that high, because that high will work completely differently to this high. Yeah, and this low will work differently than this high. Everything works its own unique way. As I keep telling you, you've just got to work out how, and then when you find out where these things coincide, you've got a better chance of being right. So 37.5 is a Gann number. It's also worked out from what's worked, and it's also coinciding from the second major high. Yeah, that it's coinciding with, and also with a Gann number. So obviously a point that could be interesting in the future. So what I've done is I've put on those numbers on a new chart. Okay, so now notice here it's not exactly where that low was made. I picked that 30.7692% for a reason. Yeah, because it's exactly right. Whereas when you look at this number here, it is exactly right. Okay, now the number you can see here, the light colour, the 34.427 is actually the number that's halfway between 33 1/3 and 37.5, the way that I do it. Okay, and those numbers, the 37.5 and the 45.454, yeah, and the 42.15, which is halfway between those two numbers, yeah, I put on before the market ever got there. So let's see what happens. So the market comes down, so it works at that's when I did the video that I just showed you. So it's got to 33 1/3, yeah, and the market goes up. It then comes back down again and it falls below. It then goes down to the number which I didn't put on the video, but it stops on 34.42, so that's hindsight basically, but it is mathematically, there's a mathematical reason why the market went up at that stage, which is what I'm trying to say. Then we go shooting down, and we go shooting down to 37.5, which I put on before the market ever got there, and lo and behold, what happens? The market rallies. This has absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with people buying and selling anything. It's a computer program. I haven't got all the answers, okay, but I really do believe I've got more than anybody who doesn't know who designed this in the first place. Okay, because this wouldn't be possible. There's nowhere other places where it stopped. Yeah, then we stop again, and then we fall below. Now you can see that it hit that level twice. So once, twice. If you ever go down to the same level for a third time, Gann said it's a triple bottom possible and a very strong sign. I tend to find it breaks through on a third time. I probably, going back, you know, to when I first started doing all this, I used to buy on triple bottoms and sell on triple tops, and it's probably cost me more money than anything else, just because I read it in a book by somebody else and had no experience. Now I've got experience, I would never buy on a triple bottom. However, recently, if you look at gold bullion, you'll see that it formed a triple bottom. It doesn't mean it doesn't always, you know, but you know, sometimes these things do work, but I tend to find it's not a good time to buy on the third time. So next number, 42.105, we come down, we don't actually quite touch it, but it's the only place it's had any kind of rally. Yeah, and then we come down to it, we stop, and then we've just gone through it, and the next number is 45.45, and we got there the other day, and what did it do? It went up. So what are the chances of me doing a video back in July, in the middle of July, okay, and the places where crude oil, the biggest market on the face of the planet, changes direction? There is no chance. Everything you know is a complete and utter lie, and as I said in the last video, even what you believe to be your name doesn't belong to you. it's Crown copyrighted, and it doesn't matter if you're American. Yeah, if it's Crown copyrighted and it belongs to the Crown. Okay, it's called joinder. Yeah, you're using something that doesn't belong to you. When you admit to that being your name in court, you've just perjured yourself, and you lose. Okay. Anyway, what I didn't do in that video is I didn't put the future levels on, because when I did the video, went back here, yeah, I didn't really need to do it, but I've done it here. So now the next level from 37.5% and 45.45, the two dark lines for the future, gives me 66.6 or 666. Yeah, that is a major Gann number. Yeah, which is in it's 45 years in Wall Street, or How to Make Profits in Commodities, for example. They're constant numbers. Now, I'm not trying to get that number to come out, it just comes out from what's worked in the past. Now, the number that's halfway between 45.4545, the way I do it, and 66.6 is 50. 50 is Gann's major Gann number. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to buy it at 50. Yeah, it's a place where I'm going to watch it for a possible buy. Okay, and then I'll make a decision. Yeah, but all of a sudden, these Gann numbers, as I've already said, 33 1/3, 37.5, 50 and 66.6, yeah, are in his book. But I've got to them via what's happened in the past on some really weird numbers, 29.0322 and 30.769. Yeah, because the whole thing is mathematical. And then what you do is you take the other tops, and we do exactly the same things as I showed you here, and you look for where they coincide into the future. Yeah, and you can see from this high here, yeah, that I've taken that bottom and that bottom to work out 33 1/3, and halfway between this one and this one is this one, and halfway between this one and this one is this one, and that gives me that for the future, etc. And you can see they're coinciding at the same place, and that's where the market stopped. Yeah, so you can continue watching the news, you can continue listening to complete morons talking about how the markets really work. They have no more idea than you how the markets really work. Okay, most of it is misinformation. Yeah, but really, and even the people who think they know how this works are also being lied to. Yeah, it's really mathematical, and that really is what Gann's great discovery was. So I just thought you'd find it interesting, and thank you for taking the time to watch.